Thank you all for your patience. We're getting near the end.
Mr. Chairman, can I record a separate vote on a few items on the community college package?
Yes, Assemblywoman, colleagues, without objection.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I don't do these things unilaterally. It's with the support of our committee colleagues. So we're going to reopen, I understand, 2, 4, 8, 10, and 11?
Correct. And those all recorded as an aye vote for me, please?
Okay, so on 2, page 4, page 8, page 10, and page 11, the vote will stand 3-0 and 3-0.
Yes, thank you.
All right, without objection. That leaves the 3-0-2-1 vote on 5 and 6.
Correct.
And then the 1-3-7-9, 2-1-2-1.
Yes.
All right, not too difficult. So we are moving on to UC and CSU. Mr. Golozewski, we're at pages 32, 33, 34. Can you walk us through all of that, please? 32 being the UC funding package. Let's start with it.
Paul Golozewski with the LAO. The first item for the University of California is the UC funding package on page 32. The compromise before you is to provide an additional $25 million general fund above the governor's level of $119.5 million. There would be budget bill language that would stipulate that $25 million of this augmentation would be contingent upon 3 conditions. And the university would have to demonstrate to the state by April 30th, 2016 that it meets these 3 conditions, or else the Department of Finance would revert the $25 million to the general fund. The first condition is that UC demonstrate it either increased or intends to increase enrollment by 5,000 resident students by 2016-17. The second condition is that UC provide evidence that it will not increase residential tuition in either 15-16 or 16-17. And the third condition is that UC provide information demonstrating that it's phasing out financial aid for non-residents beginning in 2016-17 and redirecting the funds to support resident students. In addition, there's 4 provisions of budget bill language that are not linked to the augmentation. The first states that it's the intent of the legislature that any revenues generated through increasing non-resident enrollment in 2015-16 or increasing non-resident supplemental tuition would support California resident enrollment growth. The second 3 are reporting requirements. The first would require UC to report to the legislature by April 1st, 2016 on its use of funding provided in the budget for targeted support services to increase graduation rates for low-income and underrepresented students. The second would be for UC to post information on its website detailing subcategories of manager and senior professional personnel categories. And the last reporting requirement would be for UC to report by December 1, 2015 on fund sources allowed to support educational costs.
Thank you, sir. So again, a lot of work has gone into reaching this compromise. And I think there's one issue.
One additional issue that the
Assemblywoman?
Assembly has raised for the past year is to put a cap on out-of-state students. Originally, we had thought of the entire system, but we realized that there are really only 3 campuses that need to be focused on in terms of making sure the enrollment, those 3 that have had tremendous increase in enrollment, and that's the UCLA, the UC Berkeley, and the UC San Diego campuses. They have over 20, have increased to sometimes 20 and over 20% of the students are out of state. So we wanted that also added into one of the stipulations with regards to the funding.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. I'll get to that in just a moment.
That's addition to the packet.
Ms. Bosler, I'll let you have a word first.
Yeah, we do not support the additional $25 million above the May revision. Our May revision proposal, we think, set a balance for the UC. However, we would want to continue to talk together on this overall package, but we don't support the additional $25 million.
Thank you. So I know that the request coming from UC had originally been $50 million, so this $25 million is in itself a compromise figure. Also, we're very intent that with regard to non-resident tuition increasing, that it should be used to further subsidize the growth of resident enrollment. And with regard to the cap, I'm very ambivalent. I understand that this is a very important issue on the Assembly side, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to move you on that. And I just want to make the point that we're caught in a bind, and we know quite well that there are not sufficient funds to go around for all of the needs that we've considered in this very large book of items. But I think if we go back about 35 years, LAO will correct me if I'm too far off, but about 35 years ago, we spent 7% of our general fund on the UC system alone. We're now at about 2%. And I'm not insensitive to arguments that I hear from UC that we're all aware of, that they have very limited opportunities for raising additional funds to make up for that now 5% differential that we have caused in the past 35 years. We all talk a good game that our UC system, our CSU, community colleges, our economic engine, that it's what fuels our future, but are we really putting our money where our mouth is? And so what options have they? Increase in-state tuition, no one supports that from the legislature or the administration. Increase out-of-state tuition and increase out-of-state enrollment to make even greater benefit of that higher out-of-state tuition. And aside from that, there are few options. Now, we also recognize, and I really appreciate the governor's firm stance and voice to that degree. I appreciate the president's compromise with the governor to reach where they got to. That there needs to be reform within the system, that we need to find efficiencies, and that there are ways for that to be addressed as well. So it is a compromise working together. So if we're going to agree to this cap on just the 3 campuses that are out of range with the others, Berkeley, Los Angeles, and San Diego, Berkeley currently at 24% non-resident, UCLA currently 21% non-resident, San Diego 19%. So there's quite a bit of room at the other campuses if we can make it attractive enough for non-residents to be looking at the UC system. So, as I say, it's a difficult place for me to get to 1 year. And that again, we are directing additional funds to resident enrollment. Ms. Bossler, it looked like you wanted to add something to that?
Just that our approach on UC and CSU over the last several years was to put in place a stable funding plan where the universities were allowed to grow, but there was an increased focus on reducing costs and increasing the number of students that are successfully graduated from each of the university systems. So the real focus has been on sustainability and growing to fit within the general fund resources that the state does have. And that's just why we don't support this additional augmentation beyond what we think the state can afford going forward.
All right. Anyone else? So we have a UC funding package in front of us.
Are we going to do it one at a time?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Nielsen,
if I may ask a division on this as well, Mr. Chairman.
tell me how you would like it, Senator.
Number one item, and then the new item that we'll be introducing that you've just discussed. One, and then the other would be 2 and 3.
All right.
It's not in the right one, okay. I don't know.
Right, we're not doing 2 and 3 now. So what he wants to do is the cap separate.
So you want to vote on the cap separately, separately?
The cap would be voted 1 and the cap issue.
Okay, so,
That'd be
yeah,
one.
and so the cap was added on to number 1. Yes,
one.
that's
2
number
and
1.
3 was always to be separate.
Yes,
Separate, yes.
yes,
Okay.
okay, no problem.
So the vote is on the UC funding package, as Mr. Golozewski had presented to us, with the cap on the 3 campuses for specifically 1 year. All right, so that is the vote. 3-0, 3-0. Then, moving on to page 2, which is the California Dream Loan Program. On page 33. Yeah,
Just move the Senate version.
all right, so there is a motion for the Senate version, which provides 5 million general fund,
Okay, here it is.
2.5 million for UC, and 2.5 million for CSU to implement the California Dream Loan Program, which extends loans to students who meet requirements established by our former colleague, Assemblyman Fireball's AB 540, going back to 2001. 2-1, 2-1. And then page 34, this was an assembly request regarding marine mammal stranding networks. I think we discussed this with Assemblyman Bloom a couple days ago, appropriating $1 million to the Wildlife Health Center. This deals with the sad phenomenon of stranded marine mammals that we're finding.
Mr. Chairman, move the Assembly version.
Okay. The motion is for the Assembly. I imagine that's 2-1, 2-1. And then page 35 takes us to CSU. Oh, before we get there, So moving on to the California State University, on page 35, we have the CSU funding package. I'm going to ask Mr. Constantouros to walk us through it.
Great. Jason Constantouros, LEO. Page 35 pertains to CSU's main base augmentation. It's a compromise, and it provides an additional $70 million above the governor's May revision proposal for a total funding package of $227.5 million, above 1415. For that augmentation, there are two proposals related to that. One is a enrollment target for 10,400 full-time equivalent students. And the second is would require CSU to spend $11 million of those dollars to increase the number of tenure-track faculty. In addition, there's additional language not related to any specific appropriation that would require CSU to report to the legislature by April 1st, 2016, on the factors that impact graduation rates for freshmen and transfer students, and would specify that CSU would have to describe this for both all students as well as low-income and underrepresented student populations. The report will include, but not be limited to, analysis of course availability, course of study, and employment status. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Constantouros. Ms. Bosler.
We thought that the May revision proposal on CSU struck the appropriate balance, and we don't support the additional general fund, as we don't think the state can support it going forward.
Thank you. So again, aligned with comments made earlier, we think these are relatively minor but necessary augmentations to the governor's proposal. How many, Mr. Constantouros, CSU turned away how many eligible students this past year?
I don't have the specific number in front of me, but I believe it was about 30,000 students, including freshmen and transfers.
Yeah. So clearly a huge need, and this will begin to address that. So we have a motion from Assemblywoman Weber for the CSU funding package. Do we have any questions? Senator Nielsen.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, could we take the items separately? I hate to prolong the evening, but
Can we take 35 as is?
yes.
All right, that's how we're going to take it page by page. So page 35 is the entire CSU funding package. We have 3-0, 3-0. And then moving on to page 36, 36, 37, and 38 are all assembly proposals.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move 36, 37, and 38 and take the assembly version. Oh, wait.
Okay, sorry.
36, item 36 and 37
36, 37.
as assembly version.
Right, 36, we'll take them one at a time, is the Center for California Studies. The Assembly reinstates this line item and provides $480,000 general fund to replace funding that the Assembly had previously provided to the program, and provides a 3% cost of living adjustment for the Fellows Program. So the motion is for the Assembly version.
No.
2-1, 2-1. And page 37, again, was an Assembly proposal for one-time general fund support to establish an engineering school at CSU's Channel Island. All right. Do you have a motion for the Assembly version? 2-1, 2-1. And then 38, this was the Senate's $1 million one-time general fund to CSU to administer a freshman eligibility study for CSU and UC. And this is to determine whether we're meeting the master plan goals.
Senate?
We have a
I move
motion
the Senate
for
version.
the Senate,
3-0.
3-0, and 3-0.
Just on that item, I
Yes.
would note that from our perspective, freshman eligibility is just one of the factors that we should be evaluating our higher education systems on. And our approach has been to broaden the focus on the higher education segments, to focus also on the ability of students to graduate in 4 years, so that we can make more room for students as we graduate more students.
Thank you.
I move the recommendation concerning number 39, which is CSU investment policy, rejection of it without prejudice.
All right, so this was some CSU investment policy
done.
trailer bill language that the Assembly had proposed, and the motion is to reject it without prejudice. So we can't continue to work on this. It's not time sensitive. 2-1. And 2-1. Page 40 is a new campus study trailer bill language that the Assembly proposed.
Move approval for,
Okay, this will require that the LAO work with CSU on an initial analysis to assess the potential need for new CSU campuses. It's just trailer bill language. There's no additional money in it. And there is a motion for the Assembly.
Assembly.
2-1, 2-1.